The price of anything is the amount of life you exchange for it. I think that has everything to do with mindset. If we consider longevity as a series of exchanges, relational exchanges with ourselves and others, exchange with the world in which we live, and all of the above, our mindset guides that choice.
Welcome to the Midlife Chrysalis podcast with Chip Conley, where we explore how midlife isn't a crisis, but a chrysalis, a time of profound transformation that can lead to the most meaningful chapter of your life.
Well, Barb Waxman is a good friend of mine, and she is really maybe the longest serving guest faculty member of the MEA faculty. And I love this woman because she's been a constant learner around the stages of life. Initially as a gerontologist, then as someone who's focused on medicine and longevity. So we dive into all of that in this episode. I think you'll enjoy it, especially if you're just curious about how to live a well-lived life. I hope you enjoy it. Barbara Waxman, who I'm going to call Barb. Barb Waxman, welcome to the Midlife Chrysalis. You are a friend of 10 years and somebody who is deeply steeped in the MEA world, having been one of our first guest faculty members, one of our most popular faculty members. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I want to start with just how does someone like you become a gerontologist? I mean, like, what was it about you back in the day when you decided you want to be a gerontologist, and what the hell is a gerontologist as well?
Yeah, I'll answer that one first because most people have been referring to me as doctor for years. And I say my parents would have loved that, but I'm not a doctor. A gerontologist is someone who has a master's level degree in adult development and aging, the anthropology, sociology, physiology, I could go on, and expertise because we continue to grow and develop as adults. So that's what a gerontologist is. And I became interested, not knowing it at the time, in the field probably when I was about 7 years old. And my dad, who was a physician, would bring me along when he would go to the Menorah Home and Hospital in Brooklyn, New York. And he would leave me to roam the halls when he would see patients. And I would peek into the rooms. And invariably, people would say, "What's a nice girl like you doing in a place like this?" And at a young age, I didn't have fear. No one told me, "Be scared, don't want to go." As a child, I got so much positive reinforcement. And I could tell there was this energy and synchronicity happening in what I guess I needed from them and they needed from me. And I'd always leave wanting to come back for more. So I did that through high school, and I was a candy striper in the days, for those of you who will remember what a
Explain what that
candy.
means.
Oh, I wish I had kept my little uniform. It was a red and white striped uniform, like a pinafore that we would wear in hospitals and nursing homes and volunteer to make people's days better. What a great, great volunteer opportunity that was. So then in college, I worked in a nursing home, same one, as a recreational therapist. And the story goes on from there. So I ended up going back for my master's when I was in my mid-20s, when the field of gerontology was in its relative infancy. And it's always been in my bones.
And you've been a constant learner, what we at MEA call a long life learner, but you're also a lifelong learner in the sense that you have gotten really interested in lifestyle medicine. And we're going to talk about that in the context of our conversation. I first got to know you when I became acquainted with your book, is it the Middleessence Manifesto?
Yes.
Yes, the Middleessence Manifesto. And I was talking about modern elder, you were talking about Middleessence. Over time, I've come to realize that you had the better word. My term modern elder is, elder tends to send people for the hills. But let's talk about Middleessence because I love talking about this in an MEA workshop. But I'm coming to the source here because you're the one who popularized the term. How do you define middle essence? And how do you know if you're in middle essence?
It's a great and rather complicated question because 10 years ago, which is as long as our relationship, when I published the Middleessence Manifesto, I had an idea at the time that it was from about 45 to 65. And like, I like to think of myself as a lifelong, long life learner and someone open to changing what I've published. And that is the lines are fuzzier because age as a primary function to identify ourselves is less and less meaningful. It's more the life stage we're at. So I define middlescence as a time typically when we're about 40 and what I call better, when we start to have a different sense of relationship with time itself. And we don't necessarily feel like time will go on forever, even though at 63 years old now, I know you've got a birthday coming up, and I just had mine.
You are 2 years younger than me, youngster.
I feel like I have maybe 4 decades more. So, middlescence is a phase of life, and you can experience this kind of feeling more than once. From about 40 till people are in their 70s, where there's an inner reckoning, where we feel like, "I'm not young, but I'm not old." And are the rules that I created for myself and my life, the rules that I looked at when I was fill in the blank for a number, having to define this next stage? So, middlescence is about where you are, midlife and better, when there is some sort of reckoning. That's one way to put it.
The midlife reckoning ball.
Yes, yes.
Not a wrecking
Don't
ball, but
get
a
hit.
reckoning ball.
A reckoning ball. Don't get to hit too hard. And if you fall over, get back up. And that's lifestyle medicine, but we'll get to that. The other reason I chose it, I didn't make up the word, obviously, middlescence. There were great thinkers like Gail Sheehy, Ken Dykewald. You and I wrestled with this term for so long. The reason I chose to popularize middlescence as a phraseology for this life stage is that it has so many similarities with another life stage where hormones change, bodies morph, relationships shift, and there's an identity questioning. Adolescence, which was only popularized as a word in what was it, Chip? Was it
1904,
1904
1904,
by
yeah.
Stanley Hall?
Stanley Hall.
I felt it was time because if we can name it, we can tame it. And you have been such a major contributor to helping people understand, oh, here's what I can call this. And now I know I can work with it to make this stage easier.
So it's interesting. Let's compare adolescence and middlescence for a moment. When we're going through adolescence, first of all, as you said, the word is only 120 years old, 121 years old. Adolescence is a stage of life where much of what's going on is physical. Some of it's internal and emotional too, certainly identity, but it's very noticeable in terms of puberty and in terms of how one's body and one height and weight are changing dramatically. When you're going through middlescence, and there may be physical components. Certainly, hormonally, we're going through perimenopause, menopause, men are going through andropause, but it may not be as noticeable physically. Additionally, when you're going through puberty or adolescence as a kid, you're doing it in a peer group. And the difference between 2 people in junior high school, middle school, in terms of going through puberty might be 2 or 3 years max, 12 to 15 or something around there. When someone's going through perimenopause, if I'm not mistaken, there could be a 12 or 15-year difference in terms of 2 women going through perimenopause. And then finally, and then I'm gonna let you respond. Finally, adolescence has a whole social infrastructure supporting it. Now, let's be clear, adolescence is a very difficult era, and that Netflix series called Adolescence was really painful to watch,
Painful.
really painful
Hmm.
to watch. But the idea of going through a life stage with a peer group in school, with teachers, with parents, with coaches in sports, with glee club, you have college counselors, you have a social infrastructure. But when we go through Middleessence, often we're going through things almost silently without a peer group, nor any school or program to help you. And that, I mean, obviously, this is why MEA exists. Did I get that right? You're the expert.
So there's a lot to unpack there. You did get that right for the most part. The first part of your comment about it's more obvious when we're adolescents because our bodies shift in ways that are kind of awesome and we're strutting our stuff. And not so much in middlescence, it may not be as noticeable. It may not be as noticeable to the outside world, but when we look at ourselves in the mirror, I think that we all feel like, "Oh my god, what is happening?" I always say, "My face fell at 53." Um, we all and
Did you
people are
did
saying,
you
"What do
did
you
you
talk
prop it
about?"
back up? You
No,
didn't
I didn't. I
you've
didn't.
not done any of that stuff, have you? Have you done a little bit?
No, I
I don't think
no,
so. You
no. I've gotten something called Fraxel, which is a sort of a skin it takes it down to the essential layer, so it rebuilds, it's yeah, but no, not the fillers and such. But anyway, I joke about that and everyone else says, "You look the same to me." So I don't want to underestimate this idea that what we may feel are big physical changes, people may not notice on the outside. It still feels big to us as middlescents. So that's something it's related very much to our internal sense of self. And the reckoning is I'm supposed to be a grown up and I don't feel like one. I feel like I'm still growing up. And I think this is a real hat tip to you, Chip. Your vision, your commitment, because I was with you at Beta when you were there taking notes, telling me to stay on time, and I'm riffing away. You created
That was like
this.
7.5 years ago. That was 7.5 years
Well,
ago. So,
what you have contributed is a place and now more than one location where people can gather and feel like this is my home base. This is my touchstone as a middlescent to take what I know and to continue to grow so I can continue to be strong and empowered in the decades that come. So I think that we are coming up with more and more opportunities like adolescents have for glee clubs and all that. It is becoming more mainstream. Look at the work Michael Clinton is doing as part of Roar Forward with Estee Lauder and others who are creating these advertising campaigns worldwide celebrating the changes we experience as a result of time on this planet instead of running from them. So I think, yes, it's more of an internal shift, also because we have the wisdom to think about it more as opposed to acting out like adolescents do. They have less impulse control. We've learned, oh, things can be hard. I better think through how I want to work on this. In terms of your question about the core peer groups, I think you're creating it. I think we're starting to see it in media. I have a friend who is an influencer. Her name is Jim Tan, and she's an inspiration. She was an executive in the fashion industry and sort of had done it all. And her daughter said, "You love clothes." So on a lark, she started posting some photos of my outfit for the day. And now, I don't know, she's more than a 500,000 followers. She was the face of Sephora. And she inspires others by owning some of the struggle associated with being a middlescent.
if you're enjoying the conversations we've been having on the Midlife Chrysalis, I have a valuable offer for you to consider. My book, Learning to Love Midlife 12 Reasons Why Life Gets Better with Age, is a national bestseller. And right now, you can get a copy for just the cost of shipping. It offers stories, research, and practices to help you move from a midlife crisis to a midlife catalyst and see this stage of life not as a decline, but an opportunity to flourish. Claim your copy today at meawisdom.com/midlife book. The interesting thing, the U curve of happiness shows that we tend to get happier starting around age 50 after a long, slow decline in life satisfaction. So that's in middleessence. What do you see as the upside of aging? What are the things that get better? I mean, Becca Levy says that, as shown in her research from Yale, that when you can shift your mindset on aging from a negative to a positive, you gain 7.5 years of additional longevity. And we'll talk about longevity soon. What do you think gets better? If you had a top three or four,
Just about everything gets better. And that's the secret. That's what so many people don't realize. So, what gets better? When something is more precious to us, it's because it's not ubiquitous. It's not always available. The older we get, the more we have a sense that Laura Carstensen, our colleague and friend from the Center on Longevity at Stanford, talks about future time perspective. When that time is that much more compressed, it becomes more precious to us. What gets better is an appreciation that even though everything may not be exactly as I planned it, even though everything may not be great, it could be worse. So we have that perspective. I think that we also, going back to the U curve, imagine a smiley face, right? That's the U curve of happiness. It's like it goes down. In our 20s, we feel like things can go on forever, although now people in their 20s, it's one of the loneliest, most anxious generation of 20 somethings. But the hard slogging years from 20 something down to the abyss of 47.8 or whatever, around 50. We could nerd out on this, Chip. They're fulfilling years. I'm making in my career, I'm raising a family, I'm doing this, but a lot of it is I'm proving, I'm proving, I'm proving. So they may be fulfilling years, but they're not the happiest years. It's not that they're not good, valuable years. People misunderstand some of that part of the U curve. It's not that people are not doing important things in their lives. It's just a lot of proving, which takes a lot out of us. And then what gets better is this sense of, I don't care so much what other people think. That's a beauty of aging. We start to think, and it's developmental. As a gerontologist, I can tell you it is an international phenomenon.
and has it been like this for a long time? I mean, has this always been the case? Is that, starting around age 50, you don't know have any more Fs left to give?
Yes, starting then, it varies. Like as you say, your mileage may vary. I love how you put that. It varies by person, but there is a sense that it's too late in the game for me to think about what everyone else is worried about or wants me to do. I'm ready to live my life. And that is the myth of the midlife crisis. There's a myth that started in the 1960s, the early 1960s, when advertising became really popular. And there were a lot of companies that thought, ooh, fear sells. So let's key into this idea so that when people in midlife say, okay, if I'm not living my parents' dream, for example, to be fill in the blank, I'm thinking about a particular client, a doctor. This was someone he had trained for decades. He was top in his field as a urologist, miserable, absolutely miserable. And it was very brave for him to say, at he was probably about 53 at the time, I'm going to leave this and figure out what I want to do. His family, his immediate family, his nuclear family, who had depended on that support and his income. And what do you mean you're going to change? You must be going through a crisis. When the truth is, he was more clear than he had ever been.
What's he doing now? What's he doing now? Do you know?
He had been, I don't know if he's doing this right now. He had been working for a startup.
Using his medical background?
His background, but not the skills in the OR. I think another important component is this idea of legacy, but I use the term legacy sparingly because it puts a lot of pressure on people.
There's a lot of ego attached to legacy sometimes.
There's a lot of ego. but more people from the work that I do, I haven't read research about this, will switch. Sometimes people say, I need to stop, as especially women, I need to stop volunteering all the time and now I want to make money. So that exists more for women than for men. But for people in general who have been on the career track, there comes a time when they say, I've got my mortgage under control, at least. I've gotten a lot of the issues with raising children and trying to save for their college. Now, if money's not the end all, because I need to support my family at this time, then what do I want to do? And more people are going towards things that make the world a better place in ways they hadn't before. I've got a client who went into the ministry. She's actually in divinity school right now. I know many people who take up the arts, healthy nutrition. They become chefs to help others who have different kinds of ailments that have seemed intransigent, but when you change their diet, a lot happens. So legacy in that way, moving towards what fills us up.
Did you have a midlife chrysalis at some point or a middleessence chrysalis, a time when you hit a bit of a bottom going through a transition, and how did you get through that?
I had an experience in my early 40s. For quite a while, I'd gone to my doctor, who was younger than I, and I felt exhausted by 11 in the morning. And she lives in my community or lived in my community and would say, "Well, Barbara, you run your own business, you're in your kid's school." And I used to call this benign ageism, but truly there was nothing, she didn't mean anything badly, but ageism is never benign. She would say, "I'd be exhausted if I did everything that you do." And she would look at my blood work and she'd say, "Everything looks to be in the normal range." And she didn't really listen to me. And like a lot, in particular, a lot of women, I didn't want to be a complainer. So I'd say my chrysalis was I had this shift and I didn't have the courage yet to do anything about it. And then ultimately, a friend said, "If this is how you feel, go to an endocrinologist." And I walked in and he he looked at me across the room and he said, "Oh, I could see you've got a goiter." And I immediately,
A
do you remember?
goiter?
He said,
That
he
sounds like a Yiddish
yes.
word. A goiter.
No, a goiter is a growth that comes out of your neck. Do you remember National Geographic used to, when you were a kid, if you looked at the magazines and, like, women in Africa would have these necks with these huge things.
I
Anyway,
didn't look at their necks. I looked at something else, and as a gay man, I do like breasts. I mean, I'll be honest. Okay.
all right, well, so you weren't looking at the goiters. Anyway, he immediately diagnosed me with hypothyroid, meaning not enough thyroid, and he said, "Any physician who keeps up with the research," and this woman, she hadn't kept up with the research, "You're not in your optimal range," and I could see it because it was slightly swollen, which he could see. So my chrysalis was, it was a couple years of feeling like, "Is this what's gonna happen?" and thinking it had to be that way. And once I got the courage to really research what I knew I deserved, but was scared to ask for, then it all changed. So I don't know if that's exactly what you were looking for, but that's what came to mind for me.
You also do something called the Energy Audit, and, I've seen you do it in an MEA workshop, and related to talking about your early 40s and feeling no energy, what's an energy audit?
First, I wanna have a shout out to say, for anyone listening, if you have something painful going on in your life, that may become your life's work. So why did I start studying energy, Chip? It's because I didn't have any. And I didn't even realize at the time. So I would read everything I could get my hands on that had to do with how do you boost your energy, because I thought it was just me and that I could just control it.
Dark chocolate, that's the story.
I still believe in that. I still believe in it. So I it's just, it's such an important thing to underscore because at MEA, in any workshop, I don't care what the topic is, when people unearth the challenges That's where the magic lives, right? I created this energy audit, which is now called the 7 Lifestyle Levers Assessment. It is all based on research, and it covers the various areas that if you can rate yourself highly on those areas, you will have your well-being thriving and intact. We call it flourishing.
Let's dive into lifestyle medicine and longevity and your longevity roadmap. And this was the next thing that, or one of the next things you got interested in and have now created, in essence, products around this for your coaching clients, but also in MEA workshops. And let's talk about that a little bit because you've become one of our experts on the MEA team around longevity, but you rooted yourself in lifestyle medicine. So explain what lifestyle medicine is as a starting point.
What we've learned is that less than 20% of how long and how well we live is based on our genetics. Dr. Eric Verdin from the Buck Center for Research and Aging, he says 10%. I'm being conservative, saying less than 20% of is genetics. The other 80% are the lifestyle choices and habits that we make every day. So this idea of lifestyle medicine, which is, by the way, the fastest growing certification for physicians, or I should say for healthcare professionals, not just physicians. There's an American College of Lifestyle Medicine. It uses the idea of lifestyle as medicine in a way that I will explain and I don't totally agree with. It uses it as a prevention mechanism. So doctors are being trained. Here's how to prevent various kinds of cancer. Here's how to prevent arthritis. Here's how to prevent high blood pressure and the like. How many of us are inspired by something we want to prevent? No one. I mean, that's not something that energizes me with or without my hypothyroidism. What I'm doing with the work is saying, I want to help you be undiminished. That's the ticket. And I call those years the trophy years. And the work we're doing and building together at MEA is saying, how do we help people create a solid foundation to say, this is a well lived life today, and I have an eye towards my future to remain undiminished in my trophy years. So when I taught this for the first time last year at MEA, the Longevity Life Plan, one of our mutual friends, Jim Flaherty, who is our 90-year-old man with a plan, with a 10-year plan, as he says. He is just so inspiring. He has this sensibility naturally that he is going to continue to grow and to learn and has put practices in as he considers himself, and we should all consider ourselves a study of one, to live long and well. So, lifestyle medicine is using all of those elements to, and this is where I differ, not prevent things, though that's how the physicians are being trained, but to stay inspired, to lean into those parts that work best for us, to stay undiminished. An advisor with you at the Center on Longevity, and there we're dealing more at the policy level. I'm also an advisor to Stanford Lifestyle Medicine. And in fact, they also use the 7 Lifestyle Levers assessment on their website. So it is, and we can put it in the show notes. It's available on my website for free. And we're actually going to start using it, I think, with MEA. So you'll be able to post it and use it as well.
Which of these 7 lifestyle ways of being do you think matters the most?
Different levers need to be pulled at different times depending on who we are, where we are, and what we're experiencing, our circumstances. So they are nourishment, and I call it nourishment, not nutrition. because there are plenty of people who eat all the right things and they're hungry for what they're not getting. Movement, it's not just exercise. Renewal, which is not just sleep, it's how do we renew ourselves, and it's including sleep. Cognition, which includes mindset, which we should chat about, but I'll just go through the rest of these. A sense of meaning and purpose, relationships. And in answer to your first question, which is the most important, here I'll say that it's not the least important, but if you do all six of those things, you get the seventh for free. And the seventh is stress management. Because if you do all those, you've pretty much gotten your stress under control.
Spirituality would fit under meaning and purpose, correct?
Meaning, purpose, and I put it in cognition too because it has to do with mindset.
So let's talk about mindset. So, so again, Becca Levy, 7.5 years. People are going out and doing cold plunges and taking supplements and doing their infrared light thing to biohack their way to live forever. But the reality is, there's been very little in terms of research that shows that the physical interventions that are being done are actually as important as the mindset interventions. So talk about mindset for a minute.
There's a quote that I love by Thoreau. The price of anything is the amount of life you exchange for it. I think that has everything to do with mindset. So, what do I mean by that? If we consider longevity as a series of exchanges, relational exchanges with ourselves and others, exchange with the world in which we live, and all of the above, our mindset guides that choice. So if you've ever, say, gone onto a bus and the bus driver looks you in the eye and says, "How are you today?" in a way that changes your day, and then you go and you take another bus and you walk on and there's no connection and no eye contact. And by the way, those small interactions count. There are so many people for whom that interaction may be the closest they come to a conversation in a day. So we can't underestimate our mindset to say, in whatever I'm doing, I'm going to show up for others and myself. Oh, here's a great study about mindset. There was a study of hotel housekeepers. Have you ever heard this one,
Yeah, I
Chip?
do. I know this one. Yes, go ahead.
And they were told that all of the activities that they did, things like vacuuming, changing beds, qualified as all the exercise they needed according to the Surgeon General. And so rather than just feeling burnt out and spent and didn't have not having the energy to exercise at the end of the day, they should reconsider it because they don't need to do anything else. It's everything they need. And of course, there was a control group. After just 4 weeks, things like their blood pressure decreased, their weight decreased, their physical health measurably improved. And the only thing that shifted was their mindset. And on the contrary, there was another study. One of the same researchers with other colleagues looked at people over the course of 21 years and found that those people who felt that they never quite did enough, they were never quite active enough, had up to, it's outrageous, a 72% higher mortality risk than the control group. And I mentioned that one because so many people are wearing Oura Rings, Apple Watches, Whoop. I'm wearing an Apple Watch and a Whoop right now because I'm doing work on these. So I am tracking a lot because I experiment with everything I do so I can better serve others. But so many people are doing this. And so what we're finding is they're suffering from a new kind of issue called well being burnout. And again, it has to do with our mindset. Well being burnout is this idea that I'm never quite doing enough and I'm getting burnt out by it. And it's becoming a real issue. Lululemon, the clothing company, did a study of 16,000 people globally in all their markets. And they identified people are getting too much bombarded with too much conflicting and constantly changing information. To your point, Chip, about cold plunges are good, but they're not good for women, or maybe they are good. People are feeling that they have to appear well all the time. No one's allowed to have a bad day anymore. So, yeah, there's a lot of research around mindset and the power of it, in fact, more and more.
What kind of path are you carving through midlife? Our free Midlife Pathfinder quiz helps you discover which of 8 archetypes best describe your approach to this stage of life and what that means for your next chapter. It only takes a few minutes and your results may surprise you. Find out your archetype now. It's quick, it's fun, and it might help you see your journey in a whole new light. Take the Pathfinder quiz at meawisdom.com/quiz. So in terms of this well-being burnout, let's double click on that for a second. What's the, and self-care. Oh my God, that term, I have a challenge with that term. What do you do? Do you sort of just not listen to, what all these magazines are saying, or do you get clear on what it is that actually regenerates your batteries? For me, it's a walk in nature with my dog Jamie. It's writing. I've come to realize I'm an introvert again, and which is sort of weird after having been a pretty extreme extrovert for most of my adulthood, but I was a real introvert as a kid. So, my sense is that part of the value is to do the self-reflection to understand what it is that works for you, as opposed to looking at the BuzzFeed list of the top 10 ways for self-care.
So, self care, again, you're so chock full of good stuff. There's a lot in what you just put out there. Self care is not selfish. And we must dispel that. The reason it's gotten a bad name is in the 1970s when this holistic health movement really started. Like many things, and I'm not against advertising, but it became a consumer issue more than a well-being issue or topic, not an issue, a topic, I should say. And as a result, it became associated with indulgence as opposed to what it is, self-care. So yes, people can go over the top with self-care in ways that they're diminishing returns or no returns. And oftentimes those people feel like I don't have a sense of meaning in my life because they've gone so far over that they're using all their time in ways that have those diminishing returns. But self-care is essential, and each one of us is a study of one. So my self-care is going to look different from yours, which will look different from my husband, Scott. Scott's an extrovert. He feeds off of people's energy. So he just loves being out there. I'm an ambivert. I'm in the middle. I love connecting and being with people. And then I need my time to recoup. You're shifting a little bit off of that to that other. I need more and more time alone, but don't fool yourself, Chip. You love your peeps, and that's a good thing because 'cause I'm glad I'm one of them.
But I am, as I said to you the other day when we were private conversation, I'm gonna say right here, like, "Why you were I wasn't seeing Barbara enough." She's like, "Is there something wrong?" Like, "No." I told her, I said what I just said here. I was like, I've really become more and more of an introvert. I am definitely an ambivert, so I get energy from people too. But the shock of seeing my need to have time alone, in many ways, it's like a reminder of my childhood, and as a child, I felt guilty about that. As an adult, I'm realizing, "Oh, this is
This feels good.
solitude, it can be very healthy."
It's true. I think the more life experience we have, think of it like a tapestry. We need to be able to sort of pull the right threads at the right time so it's got that right nubbiness but smooth level that we want. When we're younger, there aren't so many threads. The older we get, the more experience in every different kind of way, which, by the way, includes people being in their discomfort zone. So when I say study of one, I don't mean just be in your comfort zone, just do what works for you. I'm going to challenge people to find in what ways will stretching yourself feel a little bit uncomfortable, but allow you to continue to grow. And then we need to come back together. So our tapestry is our tapestry, right? So I could see mine and yours and say, oh, here, we got them mixed up because each one reflects our unique circumstances, preferences, and needs.
So you gave a TED talk recently, a TEDx talk. Where was it again?
It was in Boston. It was called Unlocking Longevity.
On unlocking longevity, and your TEDx talk was on the third span. So unpack that for a moment.
So, as we started our conversation saying, we met 10 years ago when I was really working and focusing on Middleessence. And a few years ago, about 7 years after that, I published that. I guess it was a 7 year itch. I started feeling a pull towards unpacking all of this zeitgeist called longevity. We used to call it aging, but that wasn't aspirational. So now we call it longevity. And all the research. And what I like to think I do as a gerontologist and a coach is to translate research, which I can read and understand, but then look at the meta analyses, which really just means a compilation. Someone has taken a compilation of studies and looked at them all together to find the commonalities or where it differs. And I translate that in ways that people can use. And that's one of the things I'll be bringing to our workshop, the Longevity Life Plan. So I felt a pull towards this. And then this summer, I was invited to speak at Unlocking Longevity. And what was funny about it is to a person, everyone else there was associated with Harvard, Johns Hopkins, Hospital for Special Cert, you name it, or they had a stealth startup funded by a billionaire. The reason I think I was invited is that I'm a translator that works with leaders, whether it's you're leading yourself, your family, your community, or changing the world. And what I found out is in preparing for this, that we all, experts and on us regular folks, misunderstand what the definition of longevity is. So we think of it, and I'll define the terms because many people listening may not know it, as lifespan, which is the number of years lived, and health span, which is really referring to how can I minimize disease and stay as functionally strong as possible. So when the result of lifespan and health span has been an all out focus on get your cold plunge, lift your weights, all the things that are important and getting all the data from lab tests. And I support getting all of the data. It is foundational, and that's why I'm wearing all these things. I test everything out. But as I wrote, if anyone watches the talk, data is not the destination, and that's what we're losing. We think that we can squeeze more performance out of our biology and therefore fool Mother Nature and live forever. And first of all, in my opinion, living forever is not the goal. Living as long as possible undiminished is the goal. And so, what I found in the research is that there is a lot of data out of the school of human flourishing. Harvard has a program in it. There's a number of places with good data. So, the third span of human flourishing is made up of understanding your mindset. It's made up of relationships, a sense of meaning and purpose, and joy. Joy is underrated. Whether it's I love to go here. I'm in Manhattan right now, and so I will schlep down on the subway to the Union Square Market, so I feel like I'm in Marin County outside of San Francisco where I live, going to the farmers market there because the bounty from farmers fills my cup with joy. Everyone's gotta know what fills their cup, and we're losing out on that. So it's the third span of human flourishing.
What are the first two spans?
So longevity equals lifespan plus health
Okay, got it.
span plus the third span, then that is a complete well-lived life.
Beautiful. Well, and there's a book, Dr. Carey,
She wrote a burn right called Joy Span, and I'm so glad you brought that up. I read the book, and I think it's really well done. It's got great tips, good stories. The reason I didn't say Thrive Span or Joy Span is it's not that simple. It's not just about joy. I mean, I'd love to be able to package it as something as simple, but the reason I call it the third span of human flourishing, it's the elements that, again, it shows up in those 4 quadrants, but if we get even more specific, it will differ for different people. So joy and joy span is certainly part of it, but it's not the whole story.
so do you define flourishing as the same thing as being undiminished, or are those 2 different things?
That's no one's asked me that before. Let me think about that for a minute. I think in my the way I like to think of it, undiminished is flourishing.
So flourishing, I mean, flourishing is a word that is definitely trending, and we are maybe going to have a private flourishing retreat here, which we will invite you to next year at our Santa Fe campus. That's being organized by some flourishing experts, including people from Harvard. And joy, I mean, come on, like how can you not love joy? I started a company called Joie de Vivre, Joy of Life. So it's a word that I particularly appreciate. Last question for us today is really I want to understand about wisdom and your relationship with wisdom and what you've learned along the way. And imagine if some younger person came to you and said, Barbara, I'd love to have coffee or tea or a matcha or whatever with you next week. And would you come to our meeting with a figuratively speaking, not an actual physical version, a wisdom bumper sticker? A bumper sticker that actually has your fingerprints on it based upon the school of hard knocks, what you've learned along the way. A bumper sticker about life or about longevity or about whatever you want it to be. What would what would that bumper sticker say, and what's the origin story that led you to that wisdom?
Oh, it's an actual bumper sticker that I've seen. Can I use that?
That's fine. Yeah.
I saw a bumper sticker years ago that said, "Don't believe everything you think."
Ah, yes. Explain.
Especially when I was younger, I was so sure of things. I don't know how it is that I have more life experience and more book knowledge, and somehow I know that I know less than I would like to know. The world is moving at such a rapid pace, and I don't just mean AI, but certainly including that, that we need to stay as flexible in our minds as we can on our feet. And so, number 1, it means don't take everything at face value. Just because you say read it from a source you have always trusted, think about it, maybe double check depending on what kind of information it is. It means reconsider what you may have believed in the past because you are a completely different human. Our cells regenerate. We are changing all the time, but we don't often dig deep enough to think, is my thinking keeping up with that change as well? And it won't say something bad about me if I change my mind. We have to be open to that. And I think people are scared to do that because they think it will show that they were wrong or maybe somehow have reflect that they don't know everything. For me, I trust people more when they tell me that their thinking has evolved because it means they're staying on it.
Yeah, we live in such an era. It's a great wisdom bumper sticker because we tend to, especially in the socio-political world, we tend to find our people and create our thinking around a point of view that allows us to feel a sense of belonging in that group of people. And we are not nearly evolutionary in our thinking around how do we learn something new and be open to shifting our mindset as a result. I mean, we talked about mindset earlier. A fixed mindset, in my opinion, there's lots of definitions of it based upon Carol Dweck's work at Stanford, but in many ways, it's one of the definitions would be you do not change your mind based upon new information. And whereas a growth mindset, it means you are open to new information such that your thinking can evolve. Now, those are not the only ways to define mindset, fixed and growth. But I love this one because to have a life in which we're constantly curious, learning, and evolving our thinking is that's a good life.
It's a beautiful life.
Well, you have a beautiful life. You are, as I said at the start, you're one of the favorite faculty members of MEA. You've taught, I don't know, maybe a dozen workshops at MEA at this point,
A bunch.
8 or 9 at least. And thank you. Thank you for being a friend and also someone who is a thought partner. We are on this journey together and appreciate what you've shared today.
Thanks so much for having me. Loved it.
That woman and I could talk for hours. Barb Waxman is, as I said, my thought partner and somebody I have really admired and appreciated because she's been our longest serving guest faculty member of MEA. And I really appreciate the fact that she's now moved more and more into the longevity space. If I had 3 key takeaways, let's start with just the most obvious one, which is really what medicine is. Lifestyle medicine can lead to longevity. And so the fact that she wears 3 hats now, a gerontologist who focuses and studies lifestyle medicine, who also is well known in the longevity world. These are the 7 lifestyle levers she talked about. Nourishment. And it's not just about eating enough, it's the right kind of eating and the right kind of nutrition, but it's also nourishment of just feeling nourished by life. Movement, of course. Renewal. She said renewal as opposed to sleep. And there's lots of different ways we renew ourselves. Cognition, or what kind of mindset you have and what kind of learning you're willing to do. Meaning and purpose, which also can be short form for spirituality and religion. Relationship, and then stress management. If you do the first 6, you get the 7th one free. So, it's interesting. Back in the day when I was in my 30s and a CEO and a little bit stressed, I had a doctor who said, "I think we should help you with some stress management." And now that same doctor, if they understood lifestyle management, would not say like, "Let's do the stress management." Instead, they'd say, "Here are 6 things you can do first. And if you do those things, you probably will have less stress in your life." So check out lifestyle medicine. It's a whole new form of medicine that's growing very quickly. Secondly, I really appreciated having the conversation with her about well-being burnout. This is, I think, something that's going to start trending a little bit more because it's interesting how people are really not enjoying the term self-care. I'm one of those people, but I'm not the only one. And there's almost a performance anxiety around, "Oh, am I doing enough for my self-care?" And people have almost self-care narcissism where they're just showing off their self-care to other people, which is not what self-care is about. Self-care is really about regenerating your batteries. And it was great to talk with her about the fact that each of us has our own regimen. What is the well-being? What would make us feel a sense of well-being? And I'd say some of the burnout is not so much that we're doing too many things, but it's we're actually comparing our form of self-care, our form of well-being with others, and we feel lacking. So do not compare yourself with the Joneses. This is not about the BMW in the driveway. Self-care or well-being is about learning how to flourish based upon what will make you flourish. Which brings me to the third thing I learned, and that was she used the words undiminished. And I mean, undiminished is a fine word, but it's sort of a negative. It's like it's undiminished is like it's an unword. And then I asked her about flourishing. And flourishing is a word that is just going bonkers these days. Harvard, Stanford, all these programs have that. Marty Seligman, the most famous positive psychology academic in the world, has a book called Flourish. So this idea of flourishing is worth exploring. And I'm sure we'll put Barb's TEDx talk about the third span, this idea of a joy span or a flourish span. Maybe that is what we're supposed to be doing after looking at lifespan and health span. It's really looking at what helps us to flourish in human existence. So, hope you enjoyed that. For those of you who are longevity junkies, this was a slightly different perspective on lifestyle medicine as a means to live a long, healthy, and happy life. See you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Midlife Chrysalis. This show is produced by Midlife Media. If you enjoyed this episode, help us spread the word by subscribing and leaving a review on your favorite platform.